Hey everybody, my name's Chuck. I say first of all, it's been a pleasure to have just be able to speak with a lot of you throughout the classes discussion boards for this semester. Some of you I've had in class before, some of you I haven't. I've gained a lot through the information that we've been able to go back and forth with regarding this class and the material that we've learned in this class. Um, so my social policy plan looked at an issue that's very near and dear to me. If you've paid any attention to any of the discussion boards that I've done so far this year, if you've had any classes with me, or as Dr. Kirby can attest to, a lot of the papers that I've written in all my other classes have been having to deal with inner city issues and ways to go about trying to better the quality of life for the youth that are residing within the confines of that inner city. I think you can all agree with me when I make the statement that you'd be very remiss to look at the American landscape and see that it's not a melting pot. America has a lot of racial and ethical diversity within the borders, and because of that, a lot of issues that in which our legislators in Washington fail to realize, I think, a lot of times with these inner city issues, that it's not just um, a white issue, a black issue, a Hispanic issue, an Asian issue, but it's an American issue. These inner cities aren't just filled with just one certain race, creed, or whatnot, but they are a culmination of a lot of racial backgrounds. Um, the issue of poverty, though it's not just a United States issue, um, there's been an overwhelming amount of legislation that's been passed in the past 100 years to try to help better the quality of life for those living within the inner cities. I mean, it started with Johnson's War on Poverty in '64. Um, in 2001, you had President Clinton's Camden Empowerment Project, in which he tried to help a certain location in West Philadelphia with government fundings. And even now in 2014, we've seen President Obama's promise zones. He actually listed out 5 of the first 20 promise zones in which he was going to locate some federal funding to try to help those living within these extreme poverty areas. When looking at inner city issues throughout America, it'd be hard to see that there is many changes that need to occur to try to help ensure that these men and women, as well as future generations, are given opportunities and capabilities to be successful, not just now, but long term, to try to help benefit the quality of life for which they live in. Aside from community action programs and advocacy programs, Americans first need to determine what changes can be done more at the community and individual level. I think a lot of the programming starts there, and it should start there. We look for the government to try to come in with these humongous programs that they're going to try to change the world, but we that live within these inner cities know the problems that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and we should look at bettering it from there on out. Um, Once issues have been looked at on a personal and local level, though, we must move on to the state politicians to try to get greater assistance from them, because they're the ones that talk to the people in Washington. That basically they're our spokesperson. That, like we learned from um, oh, what is it now? Schoolhouse Rock. Um, a lot of times we can't go to the chain of command. We have to start at the bottom and work our way up. So we need to start with our state legislatures and legislators, and let them know these are some of the issues that we need that are affecting us within our local communities, and hope to try to get some power from them to try to get some allocation of funds, and try to get on the floor of Congress to try to request those funds to try to help us that are living with these impoverished areas. Like I stated earlier, there have been several programs that have been set up over the past 60, 70 years to try to help from a political standpoint with the president to try to help us as far as eliminating poverty within the inner cities. Though in like I said, 1964, President Johnson decided to set up what he called his War on Poverty, to try to, as an effort to try to eliminate poverty within the United States. Yet, unlike in Johnson's days, these centralized areas of the inner cities, where the majority of the city's poverty-stricken population resides at, we're starting to see harsher conditions. We start to see more, not just from a housing or a transportation or a welfare standpoint, but also we're starting to see it from a drug, a violence, and an educational standpoint, where a lot of things are lacking for that. And sadly, the war on poverty didn't last in America. It fizzled out within a few years. And the impact of these programs did very little to change the living conditions of those living within the inner cities. Instead, it stated within an article that I read by Tyson Chappell, they stated that this widening of income distribution and the curbing of the government expenditures actually left the people worse off than what they were before the government stepped in. Because a lot of this has to do with these program activists that were set up, that were given the funding for these programs, did very little to shift the negative attitudes, not just of those that were looking in at the programs and judging them based on them, but those that were actually taking a part and being able to benefit from these programs. A lot of these negative attitudes were still there, and those that were residing within these impoverished communities um, couldn't formulate a better way of living based off of the lack of options that were available to them at that time. So my challenge to myself as I began to look over these programs was try to challenge myself and try to debate the system that was set up, not just in '64, not just in, but long term, since the idea of poverty was actually taken to the level that it is today. I said poverty's always been around, but it's where it's been a more localized and not more localized, but more of a centralized issue, which we see now with the social media. It's very we're able to see these issues more frequently. It's not just as it was 100 years ago, where you got on a news radio and you kind of imagine what it was like. Not only being able to hear it, but we're able to see and live these issues on a day-to-day basis. So for me, being able to look at these issues within the U.S. was something that I wanted to take from the research that I've gathered so far with all the other classes that I've taken, but also try to find a way to get it to where we can work to establish a better program that's going to break down these barriers from those that are looking from the outside, and also those that are having to reside within these issues. For America today, based on what it was like for during Johnson's time in '64, we're starting to see more of extreme conditions of homelessness, malnutrition, food insecurity, poor health care, joblessness, and unemployment at an all-time high. So for that, a lot of the programs that I looked at, or actually tried to review to try to get an idea of exactly where I wanted to go, and the direction I wanted to go for my social program, kind of delve off of those and try to find a way to try to better the programming to where we can try to rid or reduce the amount they're living within extreme poverty. It's been said that the inner cities have always been held down by a lack of jobs, a lack of communication, leadership, crime rates, and resistance to aid for those that are living within inner cities. But as I began to look, it's not just the lack of jobs, communication, or leadership within those. It's also the program that is set up for them. A lot of that has to deal with those that not just fund the programs, but also those that are within the inside who have their own motives or their own agendas for these programs that are set up and what they hope to accomplish by setting up these programs. So I guess, to make a long story short, for me, I hope to try to set up a program that's going to benefit those residing within inner cities, but also try to find ways to where they can take baby steps or to create a foundation to build upon that's going to better the quality of life for those living within the inner cities. The first thing I looked at was legislators, business owners, community leaders must be willing to build a viable business that can provide a sorely needed employment opportunities for those living within the inner cities. I read some research that dealt with transportation and how even though the transportation within inner cities is a good way to try to not only build and better the quality of transportation with those living in the inner cities, but also will create some jobs for those living within the inner cities. Economic development, being able to fund and benefit long term these inner. Let me go back and rephrase that. Economic development in the inner cities will become only as big as the community allows them to become. By being able to shop locally, by being able to deal with being able to, I guess, work within the confines of the area in which you live and be able to use those as advocates of support for that are key. Another thing that I looked at was a way to boost human capital in terms of job and skill employment, play a key factor in working on these inner city issues. the element of community, human capital that I want to look at specifically with education, because as you begin to see, education branches off to all these other areas um, of issues within the inner cities. Local governments should look to help not only increase education for those residing in inner cities, but trying to help find ways and alternatives to get out of the inner cities. For me, when I was working, as a short recap or a short story, when I was working in North Carolina, in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is a very diverse area, I actually had the opportunity of working in one of the poorer schools. And for me, I was able to take 20 inner city youth and actually give them job skills, teach them how to fill out a resume, being able to do those kinds of things. They're not going to help them now, but also going to help them once they graduated high school. So education is key for those that are trying to build a better future within the inner cities. I guess local government should help neighborhood groups form anti-crime patrols. Basically, should stimulate interest among residents in joining existing patrols, hire private guards to augment the activities of local forces. Basically, by making police more visible, you're actually going to bring down crime rates. Based off the research that I've looked at, so being able to formulate a bill that's going to try to get more funding for anti-crime patrols and more police officers on force out in the community would be something that I'm looking to try to get taken care of. Also, public housing projects, as well as more traditional neighborhoods, should focus more on efforts such as focusing on bringing in, I guess, stiffer punishments for those that manipulate the system, being able to better the quality of life for them by giving them a better environment to live in, not just children but adults as well, a better quality of life for that. State legislatures I put in here should require stricter sentencing for repeat offenders or all offenders convicted of firearms and committing crimes to ensure safety of not only residents but also the idea of recidivism to ensure that these events don't occur again. The federal government should look for ways to deal with crime and violence within the inner cities and hand out stiffer punishments. I think that a lot of times with this recidivism that occurs within the inner cities, we're starting to see that more and more they're lashing out against the system because they don't know the severity of the crime or the lack of options that are there for them once they get out, because they're seen maybe as a criminal or maybe seen as a felon instead of being seen as they serve their time and being able to work past that. So a program set up for those that are moving outside of the confines of prisons or jails, and being able to stimulate their acceptance back into society. I guess for me, it all ties back to urban policy programs and initiatives should look to create issues should create programs that are going to try to help the housing, transportation, welfare, and education, and try to look for effective alternatives for those that are residing within the inner cities. I think President Obama's promise zones are a step in the right direction as far as getting the funding out there to try to better the quality of life for those residing within inner cities. But I think by creating programs and acting these programs, they will create choices for these individuals. We're going to give them opportunities that weren't there before. I think by local governments and officials, making stiffer penalties for these repeat offenders, by creating an education system that's going to hold not only the students accountable but the faculty as well as the parents, is something that is a step in the right direction and where we want to go with this program and with this policy that I have set up. Like I said, it's a long way from where we want to go as far as the program within inner cities and being able to change the quality of life. But I think that the programs that are set up now and the bills that are on the floor within Congress are a step in the right direction. Again, like I said, I really enjoyed this class. I really enjoyed learning from each and every one of you. I hope to have several of you in classes in the future and be able to share that camaraderie and that dialogue with you as we try to pursue our master's degree. Again, thanks a lot, guys. I hope you enjoy this class as much as I did. have a good Christmas, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.